We're finishing up our first unit today by looking at the fundamentals of critical thinking, logical argumentation, and rhetoric. We've already talked about what makes an argument good or bad, valid or invalid, etc. We've talked about logical fallacies, considerations that we might think about when we're evaluating somebody's claims, particularly expert claims. And then last time we looked at rhetoric, and we contrasted rhetoric not only with philosophy, but also with logical argumentation. Remember, logical argumentation is just one kind of rhetoric. Rhetoric is basically, if we're following Aristotle's definition, finding and utilizing the means of persuasion. And there are multiple different ways to do that, right? Last time we talked about how rhetoric can be employed in various kinds of texts. And we were using that definition of text broadly to include music, movies, TV shows, books, articles, research materials, political cartoons, all that stuff, okay? And basically what we did last time is we looked at different textual forms of rhetoric that we might use to non-coercively persuade someone that a position is true, or to do something, or to believe in something, or perhaps to value something. Well, one of the comments I made last class would probably be more suited to what we're going to be looking at today. Because as you know, while there are non-coercive forms of rhetoric, there are also coercive forms. And that's what we're going to be investigating today. So I'm going to be walking through a bunch of different ways that people might use rhetoric, potentially in coercive ways, in order to persuade people of things. Please don't use this stuff for evil. I can't control what you do, but I would advise you for the sake of, being a good person and learning and growing and self-actualization that you probably don't lean into these too much. Nevertheless, it's important for us to go over them because they are a part of our lives, and we are surrounded by this kind of rhetoric too. Oftentimes, people and institutions will use it unconsciously or unintentionally, but undoubtedly there are also intentional uses of it. So if you're going to spot it, if you're going to be a better critical thinker, if you're going to be a better arguer, debater, whatever, you should also know about these. So to recap, we looked at a bunch of non-coercive rhetorical techniques. We talked about rhetoric in speech and writing. Things like appearance, cadence, tone of voice, tone of a text, sentence structure, paragraph structure. All of that stuff I have been saying influences whether a text lands, whether or not it's going to persuade someone of the thing. And we could also lump into this category a bunch of other literary and vocal devices. Things like metaphor, simile, hyperbole. Alliteration, y'all know what alliteration is. This is used in poetry a lot, where you start each word with the same letter or the same syllable. It gives it kind of a musical quality. People oftentimes use analogy, allusion, oxymorons to make a point. Nietzsche's philosophy, for example, is filled with a bunch of oxymorons. And then, of course, you have satire, irony, sarcasm, generalizations, all of that stuff. We see that employed in speech, messaging, writing, cartoons, media, all of that. And generally we accept that those are legitimate rhetorical ways to persuade people of things that does not violate their agency that is not immoral. We wouldn't say the use of a metaphor is like immoral, right? Or alliteration. Or dressing a certain way so that the job interviewer takes you more seriously. If we extend our definition of rhetoric to include, texts that aren't just written or spoken, we might also consider the application of makeup to be a rhetorical technique, right? It's designed to have a particular effect on the audience. So these are all used in speech and writing and media. We talked extensively about how delivery of those texts is also important. The tone of voice again, volume, rhythm, the appearance of the speaker. We talked about the context in which the speech or text is given or written. All of those things related to delivery and appearance. And what we've been focusing on in particular has been rational or logical argumentation. We spent our first 2 class periods on this, discussing how we might build up a good argument utilizing somebody's reasoning capacities to persuade them of something. This is what we would call logos, which is a part of that rhetorical triangle, right? Generally, this is what philosophers strive to use and scientists in order to persuade people of things. But again, it's not the only form of rhetoric that others will employ against you, that are being employed against you, and that you might employ in order to move people in a particular direction or get them to do something or believe something. Again, these are all, I think we would agree, non-coercive rhetorical techniques. And they're important. But depending on the culture and the society and the historical time in which you live, those rhetorical techniques may not outnumber the possibly coercive or manipulative techniques that people, governments, and institutions use in order to persuade people of things. I'm not going to run by you all of the possibly coercive rhetorical techniques. We're just going to talk about a few today. These are the ones that occurred to me as I was thinking about this issue, and I was thinking about the different ways that people manipulate others into believing, valuing, desiring things, and acting in certain ways. One of these rhetorical techniques that manufacturers or people who make products might use, or advertisers, is playing off of exclusivity and scarcity. It becomes a lot easier, for example, to control people into thinking or believing a certain thing if you control access to that resource, right? Would you hand me your laptop for a second? I won't break it, I promise. Is this your only laptop?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you need a laptop for school, right?
I could use Blazes.
Oh, here, will you hand me that laptop too? Okay. You guys need laptops, right?
Yeah.
I will sell you these laptops back to you at a great price. You won't have to go out and buy a new one. Isn't that a good deal? You need a laptop, right? How are you going to get work done? There you go, right? You can play off exclusivity and scarcity of a resource. You could convince someone that they have a desire or a need that's being unmet, and you could say, I can fulfill that for you. I can provide the product or the resource that you need in your life. These are things that you see advertisers and companies do all the time with a wide array of products, right? You can convince them that they have a need that isn't being met, like, look at this nice Keurig, right? Aren't you sick of going to Starbucks? You don't want to get up in the morning early and drive over there. I will sell you this. You need this. You want this. This is something you have to have in your life. Nobody's going to take you seriously unless you have a Stanley Cup. Here, you want one? I'll sell you one, right? That's how you're going to get into the big leagues, right? Become popular in high school if you have that Stanley Cup, or college, or whatever it is. So this is one possibly coercive technique that might be employed. You can convince someone a need isn't being met. You can produce a need or an artificial desire within them. This is something that Rousseau talks about in his Discourse on Inequality. One of the main criticisms he has of contemporary society is that it produces all of these artificial needs and desires in people. For things like status, for things like a positive reputation, for things like appearing cool and fashionable and all this stuff. So, one thing that companies and people will do is they'll try to produce a need in you, or offer to fulfill that need. This is a very effective way of controlling people. Another thing that you could do through speech or through writing is you could get people to think or act in a certain way by promising them a gift or a reward, right? If you all pay attention in class today and you answer my questions and you're enthusiastic, you'll get double the percentage points for participation. How does that sound? Does that sound good? If you just keep using the Domino's app, you'll keep getting those points and you'll get a free pizza soon enough. Right? Or, for example, Costco promises you extra of a product at a very good price, right? It's a lot more than what you need, but it's like, look, if you buy into our membership, if you recognize the needs that you have, we'll give you extra at a fraction of the price. Or, I'll get you into office if you promise to help me achieve my political ends. You can think of even more insidious ways of promising a gift or reward, right? I'll give you $1 million if you get rid of that guy for me. Right? I'll give you a free ride to Harvard as long as you help me get tenure. Right? This is something that you see every day. Something that's very apparent within our culture. Dangling a carrot in front of somebody is a great way to get them to think and act in a particular way. Right? Can you think of another example? Something that you see in your daily life of either of these? Yeah?
So like advertising a product to be like limited time only. So like you can only buy it during that time.
Limited time only, exactly. Or how about this? What's a really effective way to control people? They get them to think and vote for you and act in particular ways. Control the resources that they need for their survival. Right? For example, think about the corporations and companies right now that are buying up a bunch of residential homes. If that trend continues, people are not going to be able to afford houses. And the next generation are going to be forever renters. Right? So, playing off of exclusivity and scarcity. There will be no more homes on the market, so you got to buy from us. You got to rent from us. Make sense? So I think a lot of people will regard this as possibly coercive or manipulative, right? Playing off of people's fears, fear of missing out, controlling access to some sort of resource or thing so that You can control the price of it, the demand, the supply in some sense. Yeah. What other possibly coercive techniques can you think of? Think generally, think specifically. You encounter this every day. Whether you realize it or not, in subtle ways, you are probably manipulating those around you, and they are manipulating you in certain ways. Although maybe that goes more in one direction, depending on how much power and influence you have, right? How about this one? You ever play off somebody's insecurities? Get them to do what you want?
Like manipulation though?
Exactly, yeah. We wouldn't say that's right or good. But it's a technique that people employ in order to get people to do what they want, right? For example, you really hate Jenna, okay? Jenna's a stuck-up bitch. You don't want her at your party, but you had to invite her, okay? So what do? Well, before she comes over to the party, you start talking in Jenna's ear. You're like, Jenna, you're pretty fat and ugly. I don't know if you should come to the party. Like, people are going to laugh at you. Do you really want to expose yourself to that? You don't love your body, do you, Jenna? And then she doesn't come to the party. Right? Playing off of somebody's insecurities. Or you can think of more insidious things that you could do with this, right? Some people might use this in order to get people to sleep with them. Right? Or to get people to buy a certain product. Right? Are you having problems with your self-esteem and your weight? You just got to try this diet. Buy our meal plan. You're not very smart, are you? Yeah, you should listen to me. You listen to me, I'll make sure you get where you want to go. Just do what I say. I'm a smart guy. I can handle it. I can fix your problems for you. And you can do this in more subtle ways, right? There are words that you can use in order to prevent someone from showing up to an event if you really don't like them. Or I was reading this story the other day about how this woman lied to her best friend, who was the maid of honor, and told her, yeah, we're doing a palette color swap for the wedding. Me, the bride, and my groom, we're not going to wear white. We're going to have the bridesmaids wear white. And the maid of honor showed up in a white dress. Nobody else was wearing white except for the bride. And the bride was trying to get her to be embarrassed and cause a scene, get people to think badly about her, because she was trying to enact some sort of revenge. It's another thing that you can use speech to do, to dramatic effect. So, you could play off somebody's insecurities in order to get them to think or do something. Or you could play off one's expectations, right? Perhaps you form some sort of expectation in someone to get them to do something that you want them to do, right? And then you can, Sure. Or, just feed them some sort of idea or belief that something is going to be the case, Cause them to think and act in a certain way. Remember, rhetoric is finding and employing the means of persuasion. If we use that broader definition, rhetoric isn't just applicable to speeches and texts. We could also apply that to action. We could apply it to other forms of human activity as well. Could you think of an example of this? How might you play off somebody's expectation to manipulate them? Yeah, you have an idea?
I be telling so when I'm back home, I train like high schools for football.
Yeah.
So even though they're not that good, I might tell them that they can do something crazy, like they might can like run their region next year. Even though it's not probably gonna happen, but
Right.
I tell them stuff like that.
Right. You feed them hope.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe that keeps them committed to the practice, to the drills and all that. Yeah, exactly. Anything else? You could think of a billion examples. You really want that boy to come over tonight, and so you're like, yeah, I'm going to have some friends over. We're going to play some of the new Call of Duty. You should totally come. And you make him believe that, and then he shows up, and it's just you, right? But you got him to show up. You persuaded him, right? Or, yeah, we're having an awesome party. My friends and I, it's going to be an awesome hangout. We're going to go eat late at night at the Denny's. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's a group thing? Okay, cool, I'll come. And you wanted it to be a date, so you didn't invite anybody else. Right? So you could get them alone. Yeah, there you go. You formed an expectation in them. On the basis of that expectation, they did something you wanted them to do, and then you can capitalize on that. Make sense? There are a lot of other potentially manipulative techniques that we can use and that people do employ. A lot of different things that we can do with speech, for example. We can omit certain facts. We can lie about other things. We can emphasize certain parts of the story in order to get people to believe something. Right? Yeah. Can you think of any examples? Have you told a lie recently? To get somebody to do something for you? Or to get somebody to believe something? Yeah?
I had my coworker close to me on Tuesday because I told my homework that.
You didn't want to go to work, so what did you say?
I was supposed to close, and I told him, I was like, oh my god, I have so much more to do.
I really got to get home,
He did close to me. I think it's late.
I got to go. I really got to take care of my cats. Can you just take care of this for me? Right? Yeah. That would be a little lie, right? Unless perhaps you did have homework, but you knew you weren't going to work on it anyway, right? So maybe an omission, right? That wasn't a lie. You did have homework, but in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm not fucking working on that tonight. I'm going to go home and watch Down for Love. That's what I'm going to do. So, different ways of manipulating information can be very effective, right? You can engage in outright deception. You can emphasize certain pieces of information. You can just not tell someone something. That might cause them to believe or act as if something is the case when it's not. You didn't lie to them, you just didn't tell them. How about some other examples? Have you omitted something from someone recently? In order to get them to think or behave a certain way? Maybe you don't want somebody to blame you for something, so you don't tell them that you did the thing. Right? For example, you're at a party and you accidentally trip and you fall and you put your hand in the cake. You're like, oh my God, I fucked up the cake. Well, you don't want anybody to know that, right? So your friend Greg comes up. He's like, what the hell happened to my cake? Who did this? Well, I saw Lisa over there. Right? Maybe Lisa was over there at some point. Not technically a lie, perhaps. But you didn't tell him that you ruined the cake. Right? Yeah, this is a rhetorical technique. There are a lot of different ways you can manipulate information. Information is very powerful. This one's a classic. You could just redirect the person's attention off of you or off of the thing that they're focused on. Oh my God! None of you fell for it, but let's say I wanted to get away, right? I was a criminal and you're a cop and you're trying to chase me down, and I'm like looking behind you like that, and then you turn around and then I can get away, right? Or you swerve the topic of conversation. You change the topic because you don't want to talk about the thing, right? You don't want to have to explain something to someone or justify yourself or whatever it is. Instead of working perhaps through your trauma and your struggle, let's say you're in a relationship with someone, and whenever that topic comes up, you change it to, well, look at all the things you're doing wrong. I didn't appreciate what you said to me yesterday. Right? You could have been nicer to me yesterday. Instead of talking about the thing that they want to talk about. Sometimes this is effective. So it can be as simple as pointing, simple as implying something with your appearance. You can use words to redirect attention. Yeah, another rhetorical technique. I know this seems basic and common sense, but like how often do people actually think about this intentionally and then explicate it? Not very often, but if you can internalize all of these different techniques, you'll be much better at employing them yourselves and noticing them, more importantly. Something that you mentioned last time was repetition, right? If you repeat a lie, for example, over and over and over again, maybe people will come to believe it. If you feed someone the same information over and over and over again, maybe they'll come to trust that it's true. If you show someone a particular image over and over and over again, it gets ingrained in their memory, right? Think of commercials with all those jingles, right? Jingle at the beginning, jingle at the end. It's the commercial that keeps popping up on YouTube over and over and over again. You're like, I'm sick of this, but I've memorized the jingle now. Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace. Right? Yeah, it sticks in your head, and you can't get it out of your head. And then maybe, a rock hits your windshield, and I'm like, that's right, Safe Light. There you go. They influenced you to buy and use their service. You could do this with symbols, words, images, all that stuff. This one's a little bit more interpersonal. We're friends, right, Oliver?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You would never betray me, right? Could I have $5?
I got $5 on me, dude.
I really need $5 for my cats, man. Come on, we're friends.
I got an IOU.
I can't do anything with that. I thought we were friends, man. I thought you were cool. Right? So if you can lean on a relationship with somebody, claim friendship with them in order to get them to, live up to what their expectation is of that relationship. Yeah, people do this all the time, right? Whether somebody's trying to bum a ride from you or a joint or whatever it is. Right? We're friends. Yeah, will you just give me some money? Will you let me borrow your handle? Right? This probably happened to you a lot in high school, right? People wanting or pretending to be your friend so that they could get something from you, so that they could get you to do something for them. Yeah. Can you think of a personal example of this? Has this happened to you? This has never happened to you? Somebody didn't try to claim to be your friend to get something from you? It doesn't have to, they don't have to say explicitly like I'm your friend. It could be, trying to make salient to you that they have a certain relationship to you. Whether it's your cousin trying to get something from you, somebody else in your high school, your brother or your sister, right? I'm your brother. Help me out here. You know? Come on, I'm your dad. Would you mow the lawn? I'm your dad. Right? One that happens in relationships a lot is love bombing. What's love bombing? Is this a thing that y'all are experiencing nowadays? I see some people smiling. What is love bombing? Okay, I wrote it on the screen anyway. You can just read it. What does it say?
Excessive showering of gifts, attention time, compliments, etc.
Right. You're just the coolest chick I've ever met. God, you're beautiful, you're smart. I think you're really special. We could have something here. You know? And you love bomb in order to get them to think and behave a certain way, right? Maybe to sleep with you or something. Or shower somebody with gifts so that, well, they'll look upon you better. They'll do stuff for you. They'll defend you from others. Doesn't this happen a lot? Just think about what the player does, right? Manipulation of attention, showering gifts, withholding attention, showering of attention, withholding attention, to get you to feel a certain way about them, to do something for them or to them. Yeah, this plays off of people's feelings and expectations, right? This is something that people do every day. They love bomb others for various reasons. And I think that people often don't do it consciously or intentionally, though there are definitely people who do this intentionally, right? Because they're trying to hook up, or they're trying to get a ride, or they're trying to get weed, or they're trying to get money. So they'll claim friendship or they'll love bomb. Can anybody think of an example? Has this happened to you in your life? Did anybody love bomb you in order to manipulate you? Or no? This has never happened to you? Maybe a company, in a sense, might do this to you in order to poach you from another company, or in order to convince you to work for them. Right? Oh, you're so smart. You're the best applicant we've ever had. They're reaching out to you every day. They're giving you perks to get you to come and work for them.
Don't like subscription companies sometimes gonna leave and give you stuff, try to make you sad.
Yeah. Can you think of one that has done that to you or somebody you know?
I think music, Spotify, I think did it.
Sure, yeah. Here, don't leave. We'll give you 3 months free. You're awesome. You're the best. Yeah, that would also be associated with a gift or reward, right? Providing you an incentive to think and act in a particular way. I'm dealing with that with Xfinity right now. They raised my internet prices over $100. And I was like, no, screw this. I'm not paying for Xfinity anymore. And now guess what I receive in the mail every day? A letter from Comcast saying, we'll give you a great deal on your internet. No, I'm already with Verizon. I hate you. Your customer service sucks. Your internet was not good. And it was way too expensive. Get fiber optic if you can. That's the shit. Okay, can you think of any other examples? Yes.
College coaches and recruiting.
Oh, okay. Tell me about that. Did something happen to you?
Not me personally, but like I know other people that went to other colleges, like bigger schools.
Yeah.
And like they would tell them like, oh, you're like gonna be like the best athlete ever.
You're definitely gonna make it into the NFL.
You're gonna start for us immediately, and then they go there and they're behind 5 guys.
Yep.
That
Yep.
have the same position as them.
And they're benched. Yeah. from other universities and colleges.
Absolutely, they would email me like 6 times a day, yeah.
And what do they say to you?
Oh my God, you're the best pitcher that we've ever seen. You need to come and play for us. We'll give you this much money in this, and then I didn't go there.
Yeah, how many rhetorical techniques are being employed there? Promise of gift or reward, love bombing, repetition of emails, at least 3, right? Probably more if we really scrutinize the text there. Yeah, this is not uncommon. On the contrary, it's very common. So those were some kind of specific, coercive, possibly, techniques that people might use in order to persuade you of something. We could also talk about some general techniques. Use of pity. My husband just left me. I'm depressed. Will you just give me some money for the kids? It's really hard. Feel bad about me. Right? Or, ow, you really hurt me. How could you do that? What kind of person are you? You're not the person I thought you were. Right? An example of this might be, playing the victim in a particular scenario. Narcissists will do this, right? They will play the victim when they are the perpetrator in a relationship. What is a narcissist? How would y'all answer that? What is it?
Completely within themselves and full of themselves, like they don't care about anyone but themselves.
Like self-absorbed? Yeah. Yeah, self-absorbed. You could say egoistic. They care about fulfilling their own desires at the expense of other people. Oftentimes they don't care about how their actions impact other people. They just care about making themselves happier, wealthier, whatever it is.
Could you say a spoiled kid could be a narcissist?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, do spoiled kids often consider how their actions impact the other kids on the playground? No, they want those fucking monkey bars, and they're going to knock the kid off of it because it's my turn to play on the monkey bars. Mine. That's a word you hear a lot from kids, right? Mine. Yeah, they have to grow into learning that they're in relationship with others and their actions don't occur in a vacuum. Something all kids need to learn. Similar to love bombing, you might use praise or shame to motivate people. Right? You're the best pitcher we've ever seen. You're amazing. Awesome. God, you're so fast. Your hand-eye coordination is the best. I saw what you did in that game. Incredible play. You would really thrive on our team. Can you think of another way to praise somebody? You can praise an animal, and that reinforces a certain behavior, right? Good job, buddy, you pooped. Right? And then his tail's wagging, and yeah. What else? Has somebody praised you recently in order to get you to do something for them? I see it, like so many of you smiling. You're thinking about stuff. I can see it, yeah? No, you don't want to share? That's okay. Does anybody have an example? Yeah.
Like for work, like they're like, you're such a good server, like, we do that tomorrow.
Yeah, right? You're just doing such a great job. They build you up so then they can make a request. Right? Okay, how about shame? You don't wash your hands after you pee? You're disgusting. That's gross. God, what's wrong with you? I'm going to tell everybody, you're a gross, disgusting human being. And then because you don't want that to get out, you start washing your hands after you pee. Or whatever it is, can come up with something else.
My friend asked me how you spell cheek, and I said that she was stupid.
Okay, and what effect did that have?
Huh?
What effect did that have?
She got mad at me, but I don't care.
Praise and shame are very effective forms of conditioning. Although nowadays, people don't think shame has much of a place in society unless it's for very particular things, right? You shouldn't say that word. That word is terrible. You're a bad person. You watch anime with lollies in it? Gross, disgusting person, terrible human being. Shame, shame, right? Or whatever it is. You have a what's this new? There's this new like not VR, AI thing that you can talk to and share your feelings with. Is it called Replica? Something like that. You share your feelings with an AI? What are you, in love with a computer?
I would definitely write something for that.
What kind of freak are you? Shame. Shame. Don't do that. Bad. Yeah. These are very effective ways of getting people to act in certain ways. Personal and social exclusion. Excluding people from certain events, from your hangouts, from your parties. That's going to have a certain impact on them, isn't it? Maybe you want somebody to be really, really mad. Maybe you just hate this person. And so you're never going to invite them to anything. And that's going to make them angry. And that makes you happy. So you're going to do that. Right? Or you can exclude yourself from things to send a certain message. Right? Oh, Jim didn't come bowling tonight. I wonder why that is. And you get people thinking about that, right? Maybe you're Jim, you're trying to send a certain message about whether or not a certain behavior is appropriate during these bowling hangout sessions. Or maybe you're trying to send a message that you don't want to go to this alley anymore. This alley sucks. The balls are no good. Everybody just wants to play with bumpers on. And you actually have a curve to your ball. And it goes, so close to the gutter, like it's going to hit off the bumper and it's going to ruin your shot. So you stop showing up. And then people are like, I wonder why Jim isn't showing up anymore. That's weird. Is it something we're doing? Yeah. What else? How else might personal and social exclusion be used to motivate people to think or act in certain ways?
If you don't have an Apple iPhone, you're like a weirdo.
Right, exactly. Android? Pfft, we're not hanging out with you. Right? Although I'm guessing most of you probably have Androids, right? I don't know. Do you have the iPhones? Yeah, exactly.
There's like Nike and Adidas too. Same thing.
Yeah. A lot of people, they include and exclude others on the basis of certain products, right? And that has a certain impact on those that are included and excluded. Yeah. What else? Maybe you could go so far as to, if you think about a totalitarian regime, you exclude people from doing certain things or attending certain public events because you're trying to get them more in line with the party ideology. Right? There's an example. One more. Have you ever excluded somebody for a reason?
Yes.
And were you trying to get them to think and act in a certain way? By excluding them?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to share a little bit of it? You don't have to go into specifics.
I don't know, it's just like it was a
Because she was annoying. Yeah, you're like, I don't want to hang out with Clarissa.
She was a hater, though.
A hater. Oh. Yeah. Who wants to deal with a hater? Right? Or maybe you want everybody in your class to like you. So you invite everybody to your party. Right? You want everybody to think you're cool. So you invite everybody over to have a sleepover. Right? Yeah. Just remember that this can be done in various ways. This can be done vocally. You can send a statement through presence or lack of presence, so being there or not being there. You can do it by sending your friend a meme, right? Or a cartoon, or sending them a song, perhaps. There are a lot of different ways to apply these techniques, okay? How about these two? Have you ever been guilt-tripped by your parents? You're like, it happens all the time. Why don't you call me more? Don't you love me? Don't you miss your mom? When are you going to visit? Right? Oh, it's so lonely without you here. To get you to call them more and communicate with them more and hang out with them more. Because you've left the nest. They don't like that, right? So yeah, people, you can use guilt tripping in order to influence others, in order to get them to do something for you, buy something for you. Yeah, can you think of an example? Parents is probably an easy one. Has a friend guilt tripped you recently? Or have you guilt tripped somebody? Not going to judge you, don't worry. Huh? Okay. How about the rest of you? Have you been guilt tripped recently?
So I wanted my friend to come play soccer with me, and so I was
Yeah.
like, don't you want to play next year? Like, be in the starting 11 next year?
Yeah, you can. That might be forming an expectation in them, right? That's kind of that rhetorical technique, or promise, perhaps, of gift or reward, right? If you come practice, you'll get better and you'll make the team. Or, yeah, it could be a form of guilt tripping if you really lean on the, look, like, I really want you to be there. I'm going to be sad that you're not there, man. I just want to play soccer with you, buddy. You don't hang out with me enough anymore. Right? Yeah, exactly. How about devaluation? This is kind of the opposite side of love bombing, right? In toxic relationships, there's a lot of love bombing and devaluation. There's an oscillation there, right? All of a sudden, the person says that you're their everything, and then they completely ignore you, leave you on red, right? Or they even talk down to you. Or they say, you're not as smart or nice or good as you think you are. You really need to work on that. Yeah, by lowering somebody's self-esteem, you can manipulate them more easily, I think. By convincing them that they don't actually have the value that they think they do, you can persuade them into doing something more easily. One that comes up in argument a lot, which is kind of associated, we might say, with debate, the Mott and Bailey, is moving the goalposts. Your dad's like, hey, will you take the trash out for me, buddy? That's all I want you to do today. And then you do it. He's like, well, actually my back's a little sore too. Could you grab that box from the basement? And then you do that. That dish has been dirty for a while. Will you just clean that, please? Moving the goalposts, right? To get you to keep on doing the chores. Or this happens a lot in conversation with people, right? You're arguing about a certain point, and you think you've nailed them on it. And then they say, oh no, that's not the point I was making all along. I was making this one. You didn't address that at all. Right? Moving the goalposts. Can you think of another example of this in your life? Suppose it's a little tougher to think of a specific example. Yeah.
In high school, I got straight A's compared to being like a couple marks, and so then at the end of the semester, I'd be like, here's my straight A's, and then they'd be like, oh, we met for the whole year, or like, oh.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And it looks like that they also employed omission of information, right, as a rhetorical technique to manipulate you. Yeah. I'm not saying all manipulation is necessarily bad or evil, right? You did get good grades. And presumably that helped you get into a good college, right? But yeah, that's not really worth it, is it? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good example. The promise of something, and then when you do the thing, oh, no, I actually meant this. If you really want that, you're going to have to do this too. Yeah. Another one that we see in relationships is projection. This is a common rhetorical technique. You're cheating on me, aren't you? When they're the one cheating, right? Have you ever experienced that? That's fairly common. It's something you'll see if you just do some cursory reading on the internet. Cheaters are the ones who accuse their partners of cheating. Projecting. Have you ever been an object of projection or experienced this or seen somebody do this? You're gaslighting me. Right? When they're the ones that just trying to manipulate your perception of reality. Can you think of an example? Use your critical thinking skills. That's what this class is all about. Have you ever projected in order to get out of something? There are different forms of projection. There's this definition. We could talk about psychological projection.
I feel like it happens a lot in relationships, like when someone's cheating and then they're trying to say that the other person is what they're really doing.
Yes, yeah. Yeah? Anything else? Absolutely. Y'all are dead today.
Just not relatable.
It's not relatable?
Yeah,
What about that girl? Did she ever project that you hated? The annoying one?
No, she just like complained about it, like every day about problems that she could have fixed, but she took no action upon them.
Right. That would be use of pity. Right? To get you to feel sorry for her so that you'll do things for her and that, maybe it'll raise her social status. Yeah. These are not all the techniques, mind you. These are just some of them. Okay? One that goes along with shame is name calling. Right? That's a really easy way to produce a certain feeling in someone, to get them to do something. Yeah. You're a fascist. Or whatever it is. Right? Oh, you're a sleazy Democrat.
Sissy liberal.
Yeah, sissy liberal. Yeah, people engage in name calling a lot of times in order to produce a certain reaction in you so that they can capitalize on that. Right? Or get you to lose your focus. Or get you to lose the place in the argument or the debate or whatever it is. Right? Yeah. What are some names that you've been called? And how did it influence you? I'll tell you, I'll open up first. I had a student And they were an older student, older than me, actually. It was in an online class. And they wrote in their end of the semester reflection that I was completely classless and unprofessional, that I try to be a cool, hip young professor and I fail miserably, and that my email sign-off was unbefitting a college professor. Oh, I was pissed. I paced around my apartment for like 2 hours. I was so angry. Now, I don't know what they were trying to achieve exactly. I think they were just trying to get it off their chest. I don't think they were trying to get me to do something. But you could imagine that somebody would call you a name in order to get you to think or behave a certain way.
I wouldn't have met that story.
I was very cordial in my response. I did not blow up even though I wanted to. Okay, now your turn. Has somebody ever called you a name and that caused you to engage in a certain behavior? I bet. Just reflect on your own personal experiences. Right? Yeah?
Well, I can't say in class.
Okay.
It's not like.
Is it like a slur or something?
Yeah.
Okay, well you don't have to say it, but what impact did that have on you?
I was like, I matched the energy, so like I was just like, Lo's my friend, so I was just like, I was like, you literally failed high school, so shut up, you know?
Yeah.
My name is Jordan Beckler, and I've been called the N-word with a hard R.
Yeah.
On the football field.
On the football field, wow. Where nobody else could hear, right? Yeah. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, oftentimes name calling rhetorically will be used to provoke you into doing something that the person can then capitalize on. You can accuse someone of something or engage in a smear campaign against them, right? You see this all the time with political advertisements. So-and-so voted against blah, blah, blah. They're not for Pennsylvania. Right? In 2012, Senator Dada-Doo did this. They're not worth your vote. Right? Yeah, that is another effective way to get people to vote for you, to be on your side, by attacking others, by creating a smear campaign against them, by using accusations, right, in order to get something. How about blackmail? One of the most influential rhetorical techniques. If I were to dig up dirt on one of you, I could use that to great effect, right? And so could anybody else. Yeah. This probably happens a lot. I mean, you see it all the times in movies and TV shows, right? People getting blackmailed for things. This guy is threatening to send my nudes to everybody unless I give him $500. Right? I don't want my nudes getting out. Blackmail. Right? Hopefully you've never been on the receiving end of this, or somebody who's done it. But it's very effective rhetorical technique. Then, of course, you can threaten people. If you don't send the money, by tomorrow at noon, your son dies. I'm going to blow up that hospital unless this bill gets overturned. Right? Yeah, you can threaten people individually. You can threaten groups. You can threaten institutions, organizations. And oftentimes they're very effective. Right? Just think about all the cases in which somebody called in a bomb threat and school was closed for that day. Right? More than once a kid has done that to get out of school, and it worked, right? It doesn't have to be verbal though, right? If you have somebody literally in front of you, a threat could be non-verbally communicated, right? With the way that they hold themselves, and if they do a motion towards you or stand in a particular way. Yeah. How about seduction? That could be another rhetorical technique. Yeah, you can seduce someone into giving you money, into getting laid, into promising you something, doing something for you, right? Coming from the Latin seduco, literally meaning to lead astray. Seduction may take multiple forms. It might not just be sexual. But yeah, how often have people used this throughout history? To make political moves, to get dirt on somebody so that they can use it for blackmail. This is another thing that we could consider to be a rhetorical technique. More action-based than perhaps verbally based, but you can imagine just verbal communication seducing someone into doing something for them, right? With the promise of sex or something like that, not even actually going through with it. And then this is a big one today that everybody's talking about, right? Gaslighting. What's gaslighting? Well, I wrote it down for you, right?
Tricking somebody into thinking, into having to think what you think, basically.
Exactly, yeah. You're messing with the perception of someone. You're getting somebody to question their reality. This happens a lot in toxic relationships. Oftentimes, somebody will gaslight another person into believing that they're the problem, that their history is the issue, that their actions are the ones that are immoral, when really, it's the person doing the gaslighting who's at fault, right? Does anybody know where this term comes from? I believe it comes from a movie, an old movie, in which there's a couple living in this house, and a little bit every day, the guy's just turning the gas light down a little bit so that there's less light in the room. And the wife is like, "Is it getting darker in here? Are you turning the light down?" "No, I'm not doing that. What are you talking about?" "No, I've never touched that thing." "No." And it keeps going on, and it keeps going on, and it gets darker and darker. And eventually he gets her to question her reality, and she thinks she's crazy. When really he was doing it the whole time. Yeah. So getting people to question their own perceptions or views can be very effective. Here, what time do we have? 10 minutes. Okay. So, these are some potentially manipulative rhetorical techniques that people engage in. There are many others. Okay, we haven't covered them all here. But these can be used to great effect in getting someone to change their thought processes, their beliefs, or their behaviors. They're all going to depend on a bunch of different factors, right? Who the perpetrator is and the object, who the other person is, the words that are used, the nonverbal communication that's employed, how strong the person comes on, all those different things. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions? Just internalize this. Rhetoric is finding and employing the means of persuasion. If we use a broad definition like that, rhetoric can include speech, writing, and action. Oftentimes, people talk about rhetoric just in terms of speech and writing. They consider it more textual than actually doing something in the world. But this general way of persuading people is different than appealing to their reasoning capacities. Appealing to somebody's reason is not a threat. I wouldn't say it's a manipulation either. It is something in general that we consider to be more noble and appropriate than some of these techniques. But the world doesn't play fair, right? People are not always logical, and nor should people be. As we'll talk about at the end of the class, perhaps some of the best things in human life are non-rational. Nevertheless, if we are concerned with getting to the bottom of things, if we're concerned with justifying our views, giving good arguments, informing social and public policy, all that stuff, we should do our best to get good at rational and logical argumentation. So, you can engage in these. I would caution you against that, though, so you don't ruin your relationships and destroy people's trust in you. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of them are like almost unavoidable in a sense.
Sure, yeah.
At some point.
Because a lot of people do it without realizing it, right?
Yeah, I guess, but I feel like also like when you're trying to persuade somebody, obviously you have to do it somehow.
Yeah. Well, maybe there are. Yeah, maybe there are appropriate uses for this and appropriate times for it, right? You don't want your kid getting up in the middle of the night and running out of the house. So what do you say? There's a monster outside the house at night. You have to stay in your room. Right? Yeah, that would be a rhetorical technique. Yeah, parenting, for example, is a good example. Kids don't know enough about the world in order to navigate it. They need help. They need education. You might even think that if you have a particularly noble end or cause, that these are justified as well. If you need to lie to a few million people to solve world hunger, some would say that's justified. That's just a hypothetical example. Or if you need to seduce a senator into passing a bill that's going to provide affordable health care for everybody. Some people would say, yeah, that's a justifiable and appropriate use of rhetoric. Okay, any final questions, concerns? Okay, we've reached the end of Unit 1. Next time, we're going to start looking at our first case study. So the purpose of these case studies is to read and discuss this stuff in class. And we're going to try to trace what the author is saying, what the argument is, whether it makes a good point, and we're going to discuss and debate it. So start reading the first text. I believe it's Russell's Problems of Philosophy. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I appreciate your attention.